Hello and welcome to the interview segment of today's recording at Atelier Musical. Atelier Musical is a private concert series in the Hudson Valley, recorded in a state-of-the-art sound studio with a small live audience present. My name is Heike Bachmann, I'm the video host for Atelier Musical, and I'm very excited to introduce you today to the Mark Dresser Trio. That is Mark Dresser on the upright bass, double bass, Dan Maroney on the piano/hyper piano, and flutist Matthias Ziegler. Welcome,
Thanks.
Gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. It took a lot to get this weekend or to make it happen. I think, Mark, you crossed the continent to come here. Denman flew in from Paris, and Matthias, you hail all the way from Switzerland. How long have you been playing together as a trio, and when did you see each other last time?
Well, we started playing together as a trio in 1999. I had long relationships with each of them separately, Denman and Matthias. And the last time we played, I believe, was 2016 or 17, as a trio.
Yeah.
Matthias and I played together.
It was 16,
16.
and we played together in 2019 as a duo, just two concerts.
Not
one
knowing
concert.
what would come, right? The big pandemic.
No idea.
Yeah.
And we did a telematic thing in 2020.
That's
maybe.
true. We played trio virtually.
Yeah.
Two of us in the same location, and Denman was in France.
Yeah.
You want to say a little more about telematic?
I just
So,
want to say that's a
okay.
good point, actually a good segue.
So-
That's something that comes up when I researched all three of you, telematic.
So, well, this is something I've been into since 2007, since I'm a teacher at a research university. So, because they were interested in using the technology to the greater good, I saw that was an opportunity for me to collaborate with those musicians who were dearest to me. And I left. I moved from New York in 2004, and in 2007 I finally got the skill set to be able to begin to do telematic music. So we would collaborate with musicians first in a research group with musicians at Troy University, that was led by the great composer Pauline Oliveras, and with Chris Chafe at Stanford University, who invented the dominant platform called Jack Trip.
Mm-hmm.
And things changed. You know, it was up until the pandemic, you really couldn't do telematically successfully unless you were involved, affiliated with a high-end research university. But over the course of 10 years or so, the infrastructure all over America and Switzerland and many other places got strong, so you could actually do it from your home. So that really has changed.
Yeah. It's one of the positive things that
Yeah.
came out of
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
And I have more.
That's good. Your music has often been described as sonic exploration, polyrhythm, drawing from jazz and modern classical concepts. How would you, in your own words, describe your music to an audience? Maybe Denman, you want to take this one?
My music or our music?
The music as
Our
of the
music.
trio, yeah, since we're...
Well, we each play what are called extended techniques, where we find new ways to produce sound or new sounds to make on our instruments. And that's a big part of the connection we have together, is that we all do that. I started working with Mark long before I met Matthias, and we used to meet every week and just explore the sounds we had together. And then Matthias came in and we started exploring the sounds we have, that we can make together as a group and which ones go well. So that's one very important layer of it. And
Yeah.
another layer that's dear to both Mark and me is polyrhythms, or I prefer to call it temporal harmony. It's a distinction I don't have to go into, but it involves maintaining different layers of time, several layers of time. And for me, it's kind of a musical way of getting into what somebody... There was a riot in LA in 1992, and
I
as a
remember.
result of
Yeah.
a man named Rodney King being beaten by the police, and that was caught on video. And afterwards, he was interviewed on television, and he said, "Can't we all just get along?" And I sort of feel like music with multiple layers of time is a musical way of expressing the idea that yes, we can.
It's another phrase that reminds me of something, yes.
Yes, Obama.
So to me that sounds, it's very multi-layered, very complex music. What does the composition process look like? Do you have anything remotely close to a piece of sheet music when you go about a tune that keeps you all on the same page, so you know?
Absolutely, yes. We have lots of music, and some of it's much of it's written traditionally. Other pieces are written with a roadmap and text describing, duration in terms of minutes or seconds, and general textures, metaphors of what the mood is. But the great majority of it is written in traditional notation.
Okay. How does it, so you two are part of the rhythm section, the classic rhythm section, and you are the melody instrument. How does that work for you? I can see the harmony side, but it's a melodic instrument.
Well, with the possibilities of my bass and contrabass flutes, and I had to learn that, I'm kind of entering the level of also being a harmonic instrument, being a rhythmic instrument. I'm taking roles which are not so much connected to the traditional role of a flute. So I've got melodic elements I'm playing, but also rhythmic stuff. So that's where we meet on the polyrhythms, and also orchestral thinking. That's for me the most important, where I'm not just playing a flute in an arrangement, but when I can take over different voices. Sometimes I feel like I'm a horn player. Sometimes I feel like I'm a cello. So it's kind of a whole orchestra. So it's a different way of thinking from notated, in detail notated music.
Yeah.
I would add to that I think all three of us really transcend those traditional roles. I think of exactly how Matthias, I think of my instrument as orchestral with multiple voices, and I try to orchestrate. And when we compose, I'm trying to figure, often they're agendas. They may be instrumental agendas trying to make a certain sonic field. Sometimes they're rhythmic agendas. Sometimes they're melodic agendas. Sometimes they're dedications to people that are dear to us, like the fact that we're here at Atelier Musical is no accident. I have a long friendship with Patrick Loray that started, was connected to his late wife, Alexandra Montano, and that's how we met before we ever started conceiving of this even being a possibility. And Demon and I, even before we met Patrick, we had recorded with Alexandra, and I had written a piece for her that was actually based on a place that she lived called, it was 17th and 47th, but the street also had a secondary name called Bliss Street. So I thought that was a funny thing to call between 17th and Bliss, without having any idea that, that we'd end up here. And so it seemed like an occasion to play that for our friend and dear friend Patrick. And so it just sort of brings everything, all these connections together in this full circle. And I just want to add, I think the big glue with all of us is these friendships and this cooperation, this human dimension that's as important and as rich as the music itself. Because we're not doing this for economic profit. This doesn't exist in the music business anymore. So it's a very different world than when we started. And so everyone's here because they want to play together. We didn't, this is just like, I have a concert, I'm there. And then we figured out how to make it work.
To make it happen.
And so that's the key to improvisation, make it work. So that's, Patrick's making it work, we're all making it work. And so it'll, and then we continue. And that's it, the persistence and the dedication to something what's important, the ephemeral stuff.
Yeah. So when you play together, you also know each other that well that you know kind of where everybody is. Or kind
Well,
of
not
like
necessarily.
You don't.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, but we know that we trust each other. That we're all wanting the best for one another, and we'll make it. We'll land on our feet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
You know, even if we'll make
Beautiful.
mistakes work.
Yeah. Beautiful. There are no mistakes, right? Isn't that what Miles said?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I feel like I made a career out of making mistakes work.
But you know, it's interesting, once you open that really wide field, it's like notation is just one little detail of it, because it's a whole world around it. We would actually be a nightmare for a composer. That group
Yeah,
would be a nightmare for a composer, because it's like
palette. So
composing is not about so much putting down the unknown on the paper. It's about, and with all the individual fields we have, I think it can only be in the field of improvised music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I once read a quote by Keith Jarrett, who was asked at what point in his improvisation he knows what chord to play next. And his answer was, in jazz as much as in life, it's not so much about knowing what comes next, but being in a state of mind where you don't need to know what comes next.
Mhm.
Nice.
That kind of seems to me rings true a little bit here as well. As you know, tonight this will be a classic studio recording, but in front of a small live audience present. Very different environment than a jazz club or concert hall, and also different setting than being in the studio with just the sound engineers. What effect, if any, do you think this could have on the recording?
I'll speak for myself. I have no idea. You know, I really don't know. I mean, I'll be aware of the microphone that will not tell any lies, you know, and then in the end, I'll want to be wanting to make music for the audience, because that's what I'm hardwired to do. That's where my whole emphasis is in performing, and I want to share with them, with the audience, what we do and what we'll be trying to connect as deeply as possible, and we'll document that. It's amazing that we're in this pristine recording environment, but in the end, it's a performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well.
You
I
would
mean, if
see
we were in if you're in a studio and you're playing and you go off the rails, you know, you can say, "Stop, let's do that again." I don't want to do that in front of a live audience. You know, I want to make a coherent statement for that.
Even though we've been given permission to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
We have that, and maybe if it's really a train wreck, you know, then I guess maybe we would stop. And
Yeah.
if we did, we would probably have to say to the audience, "Well, that didn't work, so we're going to try that again," or something like that. But imagine that it's really going to be a concert that's going to be recorded.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
But it's still, I mean, it still is different from a recording at a jazz club, you know, where you
Right.
will play and you just have the microphones somewhere put up quickly, you know, for a live recording. It's very interesting. I wrote, I sent the link to a friend of mine who runs a very small club in Zurich, and he immediately wrote me back. I wrote something about that format. He wrote me back, you know, I immediately contacted a friend of mine who is part of a company that's developing new formats, not musically, nothing to do with music, but he immediately thought, that's a kind of connection that hasn't been there before. You know, we've had the live concerts recorded with audience, we've got studio,
Yeah.
but with that combination of it's unique, and obviously that's how people react to it.
Yeah.
It seems to be something like really new, and I'm
I
looking
would say
forward to discuss.
I've never been in this situation
Yeah,
before, where
me
I
neither.
was making it's about making a recording, but it's also about giving a performance.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I think it's energetically something interesting happens. I guess.
And I've asked myself, is the audience that's coming, are they going to be informed that you're actually, you're present for a studio recording rather than you're here for a concert?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they know that.
They
Yeah.
do know
Yeah, for
that.
sure
Yes.
they know it.
They do know that. It's going to be exciting. I thank you three very much from
Oh,
the bottom
thank
of
you.
my heart for sharing
Yeah.
this. This is really wonderful.
Thank you so much for asking.
We look forward to
Thank
the concert and the
Okay.
recording tonight. And
Great.
I also want to thank our online audience for tuning in. The live feed will be open at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. for the concert. And we will also do some individual interviews with the members of the trio to learn how they approach their instrument in a very new way. Thank you very much.